Welcome to Ethical Hacking Essentials Module 2, where we're going to take a look at some ethical hacking fundamentals. In this module, we're going to take a look at 7 different items. Number 1, the kill chain. Number 2, TTPs, which are tactics, techniques, and procedures. Number 3, the concept of IoCs, which are indicators of compromise. We're going to look also at hacking concepts and hacker classes. We're going to look at the phases of the hacking cycle in the section 5. Then we're going to look at understanding ethical hacking, the concept and scope of ethical hacking, and then we're going to look at some ethical hacking tools that I'm hoping you'll get a chance to use some of them in the iLabs, where you'll get to practice some of the items that we talk about in these modules. All right, so let's look at number 1, which is understanding the cyber kill chain methodology. This is the cyber kill chain. It sounds mysterious, but actually it's not that mysterious. We have reconnaissance, weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control, and action on objectives. What does all that mean? It's a chain, and like a chain, I remember riding bicycles when I was a kid, and the chain broke. Boom! And when that chain breaks, you can no longer move forward. And that's the case here too. So if you can break the chain, then the attack no longer happens. So what does that mean? Let's say that I'm an attacker and I'm like, I'm going to attack that organization and maybe take down one of those employees. And so I do some reconnaissance and I find out that there are 5 employees who seem like good targets. So I craft an email that has a target that I have weaponized. It is an attachment that when the employee opens it, it's going to hack their computer system. So I weaponize, and then I email the email to the 5 employees, and it lands on their system. Employee number 1 sees the email, and it says, free Starbucks card if you attend this online seminar. Just click here. And the email looks weird, so employee number 1 deletes it. Employee number 2 looks at part of the title, deletes it. Employee number 3 actually finds it intriguing, but then realizes that it's from outside the organization and puts it into quarantine. And employee number 4 does the same thing, but employee number 5, oh my goodness, says, whoa, this actually looks cool. I think I will click on it. And when he does, guess what happens? The exploitation starts, because the code unloads and finds the PC and begins to run the CPU and the memory and look around to see what's going on. But then the antivirus software kills it. Boom, it's gone, right? So where could this have been killed before? In this case, we killed it right after, actually we had the beginning of the installation. So this was between exploitation and installation. Now, for employee number 5, we could have killed it before exploitation, but we didn't. Right? We could have killed it before delivery by being able to block emails with attachments, but we didn't. We probably, in this case, could not have killed it at the weaponization phase because that was off of the radar. But the earlier in the chain we kill it, and in fact, anywhere in the chain that we kill it, there are times when the software is installing. There are times when the software is communicating back with the handler's command and control system. And then by the time we get to this last part where it's actually achieving its intended goals, exfiltrating data, creating back doors, whatever it's planning on doing, a ransomware or whatever, we're in trouble by this point, right? It's doing its action on objectives. Now, in the example I gave you, we were fortunate that this organization had good endpoint protection that stopped the installation of this malware. So that's the cyber kill chain and what it means. Now, let's have a look at TTPs. TTPs are tactics, techniques, and procedures. So, everyone has their own style, right? The way they dress, the way they walk, what they do. And if you know somebody well enough, you've worked with them, you've seen their writing, the way they express themselves. Let's say that somebody left a handwritten note on your desk. And the way they said things, the style of their writing, and the contents of the note, even though you don't have a signature who wrote the note, you know exactly who this note is. This is Jane, unequivocally. You don't even have to think about it. And the reason why is because you've established a series of very powerful pieces of information that help you identify that person or identify other people by the way they do things. This is the same thing we do with threat actors. They have ways that are turned into patterns of activities, methods with the way they do things. The T for tactics is the way they perform the attack from beginning to end. The T for techniques is the technical methods, the tools that they use. The procedures are the organizational approach that they take, the threat actor, to launch the attack. You put these together, it's almost like getting the thumbprint of the attack. So even though the attacker doesn't say, hey, I'm with this attacking group, you examine the TTPs and you can tell who they are. So one of the things that we want to do is look at behaviors in our computing systems, our networks, that indicate an adversary at work. So let's go into the fourth floor of a typical office building. And in this fourth floor, we have customer support, customer relations. This is where we have people on the phones all the time. So all of these employees, each one of them, have a desktop computer. On that desktop computer, they run one app. They have regulated break times and lunch times and shifts that people come in. Whenever one user gets off of or finishes a shift or goes on breaks, they log off the application, not the computer. They log off the application, and then they take a break, and then they come back and log back on the application, and it's monitored by supervisors and managers, and that's all that happens, right? These users don't go into Windows and open up a browser. These users don't download a new app from Microsoft or from anywhere. They just answer the phone. They just take care of the customer data, and that's what they do for a living. That's how they make their money every 2 weeks. Now, what happens if one of those computer systems is scanning the network or using PowerShell, or one of those computer systems where there is just people who answer the phone? That's what they do all day, but there is a proxy server that information is being sent over this computer. Or what if one of those employees' accounts is using the command line, using PowerShell, maybe not using a web browser, but some other type of HTTP user agent to access resources somewhere else in the company? Or maybe some user account or computer on that floor is sending information out to a command and control server, a known feature for attack groups. Or maybe, what do you mean? What's going on here? There's a DNS tunnel from one of these workstations. The only thing you can use that for is hiding the fact that you're sending data out of the organization, or a web shell, or piling up data different places on the network. Each of these, this is not normal behavior for normal users, normal employees. These are the behavior of an adversary. somebody has control of an account or of a workstation, and they're trying to use that against you. So these are some very important behaviors to look for in a network to identify adversaries. One of the other areas that we need to monitor and be able to identify are indicators of compromise, or IoCs. An indicator of compromise is like a clue. I see a magnifying glass here, right? An artifact, a little piece of forensic data that's found on a network, found on an application, found on an operating system that indicates that there might be malicious activity. There might be an intrusion or an attack going on right now. And so they give you a good source of information about threats, and they can help in the intelligence gathering process. And what we do as organizational professionals is we do continuous monitoring to try to find IoCs, and we detect. And IoCs are also extremely useful in the response to a threat, because I can take the IoCs and I can put them together and distill them in a way that can help with the forensic process that we see like over here. And then I can use them to stop future threats, evolving threats. So IoCs, indicators of compromise, clues, artifacts, forensics data that show that a system is compromised and how it's been compromised. So if we look at IoCs, there are actually different types of indicators that can help us to detect threats. So for instance, there are email indicators. These are used to send malicious data to target organizations by means of email. So like for instance, the sender's email address, subject, attachment, that header information could give us a good email indicator. And so I could, for instance, take the email indicator that I find. All right, this is an indicator of an attack, and it's coming from this domain, this IP address. I can actually take that IOC, feed that information into my security apparatus, and block it. See how an IOC can be useful. Same with network identifiers. So for instance, I see that someone's using a command and control server. There's malware that's being delivered. Looking at the operating system, the task, like for instance, I can find URLs. I can find domain names and IP addresses that might be used as part of an attack. Again, how useful is this? I can take that information, feed it into my endpoint protection, feed it into my intrusion detection and prevention systems, and have those network URLs, domain names, and IP addresses blocked and stop the attack. So IOCs are useful with helping with defending the network. I could have host-based indicators that it's infected, register keys, mutex, DLLs, file hashes. I could take the hash of an executable that I found on an infected system and feed that hash into my endpoint protection and say, if you see this file, quarantine and or delete, and protect my system because of the IOC that I found. I could have behavioral indicators. Like I said before, on that floor where everyone's just doing phone answering and logging into an app, one single app, but there's PowerShell, remote command execution, etc. What I can do is take those indicators and use them to block the sources of the attack that's happening. So IOCs, different categories, very important to see and understand.